He used to say that love didn't need words, that silence could hold everything two hearts understood. I believed him once. Our mornings were filled with quiet warmth, the steam of coffee curling between us, sunlight spilling softly across the table, and his hand brushing against mine in gentle routine. But lately, that same silence feels like a wall. The sound of his spoon stirring his cup seems louder than our conversations. I watch him glance at his phone more than he looks at me, his smile reserved for something, or someone, unseen. There was a time when our laughter could fill every corner of this house. We'd argue about which movie to watch, about burnt toast, about small things that didn't matter, because even arguments were signs that we cared enough to fight. Now, the peace between us feels hollow, like a truce after a war that neither of us remembers starting. He speaks less these days, and when he does, his voice sounds polite, like he's speaking to a stranger he doesn't want to offend. I've tried to believe it's just exhaustion. Work. Stress. The weight of years pressing down on love until it bends under its own history. I tell myself that marriages go through seasons, that winter always feels longer than it really is. But every evening, when I hear his key turn in the lock, I hold my breath without realizing it, unsure of which version of him will walk through that door, the man I married, or the man who's already halfway gone. Sometimes I imagine asking him what changed. Sometimes I rehearse the question in my head as I set dinner on the table, as if the right tone could make him stay. But when I look at him, the words dissolve before they reach my lips. He still thanks me, still eats quietly, still tells me good night. He's still kind. And maybe that's what hurts the most. He hasn't stopped being kind, just distant, as if love can survive in gestures stripped of emotion. Nights are the hardest. I lie beside him, tracing the outline of his shoulder in the dark, trying to remember the warmth that used to live there. He sleeps easily, or pretends to. I stare at the ceiling and count the seconds between his breaths. In those small, measured silences, I feel everything slipping further away. There's no fight, no drama, just a slow unraveling that no one can see. He still calls me by my name, still wears his ring, still asks how my day was. And yet, the words fall flat, lifeless, like petals pressed between pages of an old book, once beautiful, now brittle. I find myself talking less, afraid that every sentence I say will echo in the emptiness between us. I wonder when love became something we endure instead of something we live. I used to think silence was proof of understanding, that real love didn't need noise to survive. But now I know silence can also be a grave where words go to die. And as I sit across from him, smiling when he looks up for a second before returning to his screen, I realize that I've been mistaking quiet for peace. What we have now isn't calm. It's absence dressed as tranquility. There's no storm, no tears, no raised voices. Just the stillness of something sacred decaying slowly, politely, without asking for permission. He does what he wants. I don't ask. And maybe that's what keeps us together. Two people bound not by love, but by the fear of breaking the fragile quiet we've built around what's already broken. I take another sip of coffee, though it's gone cold. He looks up for a moment and smiles faintly, a reflex more than affection. I return it, pretending not to notice the distance hiding behind his eyes. The silence stretches again, and this time I let it. Because sometimes it's easier to bear the quiet than to face the truth waiting inside it. It began with the smallest changes. Too small to accuse, too obvious to ignore. He started coming home later, claiming deadlines and meetings that didn't exist before. His phone, once left carelessly on the table, now stayed face down, guarded by the quiet tension of secrets. There was a new scent on his shirts, faint but not mine, a perfume too soft to belong to a colleague. I noticed, but I said nothing. I smiled, cooked dinner, and asked about his day. He answered with half-truths that sounded complete only because I wanted them to be. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of what I knew settled into my chest like a second heartbeat. Constant, heavy, familiar. I stopped searching his eyes for answers. There was no need. The silence between us told me everything words could not. I began to move through our home like a guest, careful not to disturb the fragile balance we'd built between truth and pretense. Every conversation was a performance now, his lines rehearsed, mine improvised. Yet somehow, the show went on. Sometimes, when he left for work, I'd linger by the window and watch him go. There was still a part of me that wanted him to turn around, to offer a glance that said he remembered who he used to be. But he never did. He walked with purpose, always toward somewhere I no longer existed. The first few days, the pain was sharp, unbearable. Then it dulled into something quieter, not peace, not acceptance, just survival. I tried to remember us before the distance. The way he used to laugh freely, head tilted back, eyes full of light. The nights we stayed awake dreaming about places we wanted to see, the life we thought we'd build. I kept replaying those memories, trying to find where the warmth had ended, where love had turned into habit. But memories are cruel, they glow brighter when the present grows darker. They remind you not of what you lost, but of how alive you once felt. There were moments when I almost spoke. When his phone buzzed and I saw his expression shift from weary to alive, something inside me wanted to break the silence. But then, what would be left after the words? Confrontation doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just burns what little remains. I was tired, too tired to ignite another fire in a house already made of ashes. So I learned to carry my heartbreak quietly. I poured it into things that didn't ask questions. Long walks, unread books, the sound of rain against glass. I wrote letters I never sent, confessions addressed to no one. Each word bled honesty I couldn't speak aloud. It wasn't forgiveness I was writing toward, it was understanding. Maybe he loved her, or maybe he just needed to feel wanted again. And maybe, in some hidden corner of myself, I understood that need. Still, I couldn't leave. Not yet. It wasn't weakness that kept me there, it was the strange dignity of endurance. I wanted to see how long love could survive without being spoken. I wanted to know if silence could still mean strength. So, I smiled when he looked at me, answered when he spoke, laughed at jokes that didn't reach my heart. He never noticed the difference. Some nights, I'd wake to find him turned away, phone glowing faintly on his side of the bed. I'd watch the light flicker against his face and feel something between pity and detachment. The pain was no longer sharp, it had become a kind of stillness, an understanding that I could endure this, even if I couldn't fix it. I didn't pray for him to come back to me anymore. I prayed for calm, for the strength to keep standing in the ruins of what used to be home. And in the quiet that followed, I began to sense something unexpected beneath the ache, a faint pulse of self, something I'd forgotten existed. It whispered that survival was not the same as surrender. That bearing pain quietly didn't mean it owned me. And that maybe, just maybe, silence could one day belong to me again. The night it finally broke was ordinary. There was no argument, no confession, no grand moment of truth. He came home late again, his shirt faintly scented with a perfume I'd learned to recognize. He smiled, distracted, said he was tired, and disappeared into the shower. I stood in the kitchen, watching the clock, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound between us. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just a strange, calm certainty, the kind that comes when you finally stop waiting for what will never return.